Oh,
Keep it
don't worry.
rolling. We'll come back.
Don't
We'll
worry.
come
Give
back.
it a second.
It
Give it a
feels so
second.
good.
Here we go. It was
Here it
Feels
is.
so good.
Here it is. Here it is. We're gonna let it roll a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer. Whew.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Man, oh man.
Spike there.
I missed it.
I know. It's been, hey, you know what? This has been the longest stretch the Celtics have gone without a win in a long time. Guys, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. I am your host, Rob Haytayan. Joined with me are my two co-hosts, Seamus Zarlingo and Nick Franco. Guys, the Celtics, after falling short on Christmas at the TD Garden, they were dropping two straight. The Celtics, they came back home tonight and they took care of business. A bounce back statement win from Jaylen Brown and company. 142-105 was your final score tonight from TD. Guys, we got a lot to dive into, a lot to dissect. Obviously, we're going to go into initial thoughts. I just want to give a quick stat here because this was on my mind all day today. Now, coming into this game, guys, the last time the Celtics had lost 3 games in a row was 647 days ago. Now,
Wow.
all day I was thinking, oh God, it's been so long. And what do we do? How do I take this? Last time they lost 3 games in a row, Marcus Smart was still on this team. Malcolm Brogdon was on this team. Grant Williams was on this team. Total different vibe, guys. I had to throw that out there. The Celtics streak continues. We're going to 247 tomorrow, guys, when we wake up. But let's get started, guys. Our initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways from tonight's blowout win.
Imagine if we had to talk about that stat and actually go into fruition about it. But we didn't get to talk about Christmas on Celtics Postgame Live, but it was such a bounce back win. I think that taking that loss on Christmas was a kick in the ass to the team. They really got their stuff together, getting on the road, and they looked like the team that we're accustomed to seeing from last year. And when we saw that championship run, it seemed like the losses that they've taken recently were taken personally. Everyone was firing on all cylinders. We saw all 12 players who were active tonight contributing in their own fashions and being able to find their roles within the team. We obviously saw our star players step in. Jaylen Brown with a huge performance tonight. He really stepped up and was that energy shifter that we're so accustomed to. And we were texting in the group chat talking about if we were going to be concerned or not, if we were concerned or not, even after the loss to Philly. And all of our problems were answered tonight, and as long as it continues, I think we're seeing them, as he said once, the energy is about to shift. I feel like this was a monumentous energy shifter for this team going forward.
For the Celtics, this was a game they had to win because if you look at the Pacers' recent schedule, now they win 5 straight and they go on a West Coast road trip where they pretty much sweep the entire trip. They do sweep the entire trip. They come home in a game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, lose a close one last night to OKC, and then they fly up to Boston tonight to play the Celtics, who have lost the last 3 of their last 4 games. And the Celtics, looking at the Pacers' schedule and where the Celtics are right now within their schedule, which is a little bit of a weird stretch here, played 2 games in 11 days, then you come back, you lose 3 of 4, you lose 1 on Christmas, a huge game against the Philadelphia 76ers, and now you play not a back-to-back, but another 2-game series against the Indiana Pacers. This was a game in which the Celtics had to pull out because of the circumstances surrounding not only their ball club, but the Pacers ball club as well. No Aaron Nesmith tonight, no Andrew Nembhard, no Drew Holiday, no Kristaps Porzingis. You still look at the Celtics and go, they have the bigger absences, but where the Pacers are in their schedule and who they were missing, some of their energy spark plugs tonight, the Celtics had to come out and show what they're really made of, especially considering the conversation we've seen in the past couple of days regarding the Celtics, because I believe I mentioned 2 post games ago after the Magic game, if they came out and lost the Christmas game against the Philadelphia 76ers, people in the national media would start talking about the Boston Celtics and their struggles, especially being the second seed closer to the third seed now than they are the first seed, losing 3 of the last 4. And guess what? The Boston Celtics, what was the narrative these last couple of days? Are there concerns surrounding the Boston Celtics, not only from the media locally in Boston, but nationally as well? When everybody saw that loss on Christmas to the Philadelphia 76ers, who everybody's been putting down for the first portion of the season, it started to make its way, the Celtics narrative of, oh, are we supposed to be concerned about the Celtics at this point in time? Started to leak its way into the national spotlight a little bit. And now, after this win, of course, this was not a nationally televised game, but what the Celtics presented tonight is the fact the Celtics are still the best team constructively in the entire NBA. And when they're playing their A game, quarters 1 to quarters 4, that is when the Celtics can dominate any opponent on any given night. And tonight's game, this was ultra impressive from the Celtics, considering they played a full 48 minutes, which is what we've wanted to see them do lately, because we've seen stretches of greatness followed by stretches of complacency that we want to see this team get rid of. And I'll say, after this game as well, the next game against the Indiana Pacers in a couple days from now, still at the TD Garden, still back at home, Indiana with a little bit more rest now and a game plan to play against the Celtics with. After this game, they have a lot more film. That'll be a big contest as well for the Boston Celtics. So huge win tonight, but another huge one on the horizon against the Indiana Pacers.
It was the 2024 NBA championship, Boston Celtics finally getting back out on the floor and playing basketball. That's what it was. It was probably our most complete game of the season. From an offensive and defensive standpoint, the Celtics never let up. They kept the pushing, the lead kept growing, and as a result, the starters got to check out with 8 minutes left in the quarter. It made my life easier. It made their life easier. I mean, it was a great bounce back win. It was one you needed after coming on your home floor on Christmas and letting those fans down, losing to the Philadelphia 76ers the way you did. It was a very important game tonight for the Celtics. They answered the call like they have for the past 2 years. So very promising win. I will say, Seamus, I agree with you. A lot more important games ahead because the Celtics haven't just played 1 or 2 bad games this month. It's been a bad month of basketball, and they have a couple of opportunities here against the Indiana Pacers yet again, and I believe the Toronto Raptors back at home on the 31st. They have an opportunity here to close out the month on a mini 3-game win streak and on a positive note going into the new year. I was very pleased with seeing this team succeed outside of Jason Tatum tonight in the non-Jason Tatum minutes. We're going to talk about it later. It was very important. But, guys, something we have to look at was the 2024 Celtics NBA champions being back on the floor, guys. Let's take a look at this lead tracker. Guys, for the first time this season, I believe, somebody fact-check me on this, we can finally say wire to wire win for the Boston Celtics, guys. Their biggest lead of the night was 38. They did not find themselves trailing at all in this game. A sea of green, guys. This is the type of lead tracker we've been wanting to see, we love to see, and we are happy to see from the Boston Celtics moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the Pacers haven't been looking like the team that we're accustomed to seeing, especially after the Eastern Conference Finals last year. It seems like they've kind of taken a step back. However, they're still the team that we faced off in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I guarantee this isn't well, we're obviously seeing them on Sunday, but I believe they're going to get their things together and they're going to be able to make a playoff run. But these are the types of teams that are, quote unquote, the Celtics kryptonites. These younger teams who are starting to be on the uprise, who are developing into their roles. And obviously they were missing a few key players on the court, Nemhard and Neesmith. And I think we'll start to see a lot more of these types of games going forward from the Boston Celtics, where you're getting the contributions from your other players, and I don't want to say that it hinders the Celtics when they have a fully healthy roster, but people are playing a little bit more into their roles when a couple of players are off the court and they are able to access those extra minutes. You look at a guy like Peyton Pritchard, who had a breezy triple-double tonight, and it was contributing on both ends, offensive rebounds. He was dogging those out tonight. And we're starting to see a lot more of that going forward. And that's what we were accustomed to seeing with the Celtics over the past year. And I don't even know who the guys were on the court during the first 30 games of the season, but I, I think we're starting to see that click again. And I think it really took that, okay, we have our backs against the wall, the type of mentality instead of the kiss the ring mentality. Oh, we got our championship. We don't have to worry about that. We'll be in the playoffs. We'll see you in May, no matter what. That's not how the NBA works, especially nowadays. When you're going for a back to back, you need to be better than you were the year before. You need to be able to say that if we lined up the 2023-24 Celtics versus the 24-25 Celtics, that the 24-25 Celtics would win that 7-game series. And I think what we saw tonight is a telltale sign of what's to come from this team, and especially with the improvements we've seen from the players, especially all the way down to the depth of Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard and Luke Cornett, who's filled in big tonight. I think he's established himself as that backup center behind Al Horford when Chris Sapp or Al are taking a night off. We'll see him start to have those types of nights, and we're very lucky to have them have these types of wins. And I think that clipboard, I made a joke about a clipboard being broken on a couple of heads this morning. And I think that happened during that practice. They definitely had to run a couple of suicides after that Christmas loss. And I think it really woke up this team, and we're going to see that new energy applied to the rest of the season.
Well, let's bring this up because 2 years ago, we talked about on this post-game show what really we saw within the 21-22 Celtics and what we saw in them of them really turning the ship around from that putrid start to the season. Everybody remembers the 21-22 Celtics. They were 18-21 to start the season, yet they made it all the way to the NBA Finals once June rolled around. And what did we always look at with that team late in the season that made us believe in that team so heavily? They responded to every lull in which they had. And this recent stretch by the Celtics, losing 3 of the last 4. This is not something we're used to at all with this particular Celtics team. The 23-24 Celtics team leading into the 24-25 Celtics team, essentially the same team. The last stretch was awful, putrid. You lost 3 games in which you quite frankly should have won. Against the Sixers without Jared McCain, against the Bulls at home, against the Magic without Boncaro and Franz Wagner. Those are all games the Celtics should have won, yet the Celtics, how did they come out tonight when the spotlight is put on them all of a sudden? Because the Bulls in the Magic game, we were giving them a little bit of a pass, maybe less so after the Magic game. But after the Sixers game, the alarm bells were going off all over the place, not only locally, but nationally, as I mentioned earlier. And tonight, the Celtics came out and responded as a championship level team. And I completely agree, Rob. Earlier in the day, I wasn't thinking of the stat you were thinking of, but I was thinking, what, 3 in a row? We haven't lost 3 in a row in a long time. And also, let's mention this at home. 11-5 at home this year. I heard a stat earlier. We only lost 4 games at home all of last season.
Right.
Lost 5 games already before the new year this season. And that certainly paints a different picture for the Celtics and one that they have to respond to. And we talked about it last post game, the assist to turnover ratio for the Celtics. Last game, it was 13 assists to 18 turnovers, just completely uncharacteristic from the Boston Celtics. I shouldn't say last game, it was against the Orlando Magic. That was the game. Tonight, the Boston Celtics passed to 31 assists, just an astronomical number for assists. And you add on top of that only 9 turnovers for the team tonight while they forced 13. And even last game, they were terrible at forcing turnovers against the Philadelphia 76ers, only forced 6 the entire game, which was a season low for the Sixers. Yet tonight we saw, particularly in the first half and even in the second quarter, when the Celtics were going on their run, building on the lead continuously, like we saw in that lead tracker, the turnovers and points off of turnovers were big for the Celtics, particularly Jaylen Brown coming up with some of those points off of turnovers. It felt like he was just a safety playing on defense tonight at some portions of this game. But the way the Celtics responded in their entirety, you look at the turnover numbers, you look at the assist numbers, you really look at every number from this game opposed to the last couple of games, particularly the last 4 games. Maybe take out that Saturday in Chicago because we thought, oh, that was a great response. Then they dropped 2 after that. This game was a game the Celtics needed to play, and you could certainly see the recent stretch was maybe a little bit of a wake-up call for them. But as I said earlier, they're going to have to play more games like this for us to really heighten that belief in them again, because constructively, they're still the greatest team in the NBA as of right now, but they have to actually go out there and prove it. And this was the first, I don't want to say the first necessarily, but one of the lowest building blocks on the pyramid that'll eventually lead up into what we think could be a back-to-back title run.
Absolutely. And I think, right, kind of pulling from what both of you guys said, Franco, you mentioned being better this year. I love that, right? This team, if they want to go back to back, they have to beat last year's team. And Seamus, for the topic of responding, the Celtics wouldn't just respond after a loss the last year, especially last year. The other teams prior doesn't really matter anymore. But last year, they wouldn't just respond with 1 win, right? They would come out and they would rip off 6 or 7 in a row. Oh, I mean, you can go through the game log, and I was actually looking at it this morning. After a loss, it was like, a 6-game win streak before their next loss, 7-game win streak, because they understood that one loss was a chain reaction to a consistent stretch of good basketball. We really haven't seen that this month from Boston. We've seen them, like you said, against Chicago, respond, but then they drop 2. And those are some old habits, those complacency habits. Right now, I don't think I can confidently say that this year's Celtics team is better than last year's Celtics team, because they really just haven't been. And I do think that an entire month of good dominant basketball is necessary right now for me to feel uber confident about this team going back to back, because of just what history the past 6 seasons rather, have kind of shown me right now in the NBA that, listen, there's been a lot of great teams, the 21 Bucks, the 23 Nuggets, the 22 Warriors, less so, a little salty about that one, but we've seen some great teams in the NBA who the next year were the favorites. I mean, let's not forget, guys, Denver all last year was picked throughout the entire season. They're the favorites. They're the dominant team. They got the experience. Jokic is that guy. They're going to get to the playoffs. And, they got in the second round. And, right now, I'm not saying this Celtics team is going to get bounced in round 2. What I'm saying is that they're definitely not better than they were last year. And I don't know if they've played to the same standard that they did last year. Luckily for these guys, there's a lot of basketball left, and they're really like Seamus, like I completely agree with you. They are the greatest constructed roster in the league, right? They are still the favorites. They're still the team to beat. However, they got to get some of those good habits back.